coming on the air with that deadly storm system slamming the south. Look at this here. The wind, we're about to show you, totally tearing the roof off of a jail in Mississippi with inmates still inside. The whole thing sending trees into sidewalks, slamming into homes. And now tonight, we're just getting word of warnings of more tornadoes. We're live on the ground in Mississippi. Also tonight, why President Trump's pumping the brakes on tariffs for car makers after that Wall Street whiplash for his new taxes on Canada and Mexico. China, not out of the woods yet. We're going to talk through what all of this means for the thing that probably matters most to you, your money, when we take you live to the White House. Then it'll be all yellow at next year's World Cup finals right here in North America as FIFA gives Coldplay a mandate. Fix us, why the vibes are not so hot right now about the Soccer Federation's main match. Plus, the new scheme by prosecutors from ticket sellers to try and scam StubHub users out of seeing Taylor Swift and other big events. Those are the allegations, how these companies now face new pressure to protect consumers. And how one of the most popular brands of the 90s is trying to close the gap with competitors by going back to an old playbook. Have you heard about Gap's comeback? We're breaking that down coming up a little bit later on in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and tonight we start with that monster storm pummeling the country right now, turning deadly, killing at least 3 people. Dozens more people have been hurt. And I want to show you Mississippi now. This is one of the state's worst hit. Look at this. It just took seconds for wind gusts to yank the roof. There it comes. Peels it right back. It's like a can opener, right? At least 7 people were inside. Also in that state, officials say a man was electrocuted and killed after trying to put out a fire that was sparked by a downed power line. Just miles away from that, another man died when the wind sent a tree slamming into the car he was driving. We've seen a lot of trees in this area destroying homes, turning them into just piles of debris. Comes just a day after 10 tornadoes ripped through the south, 7 of them in Oklahoma alone. We saw these roofs coming off of not just that prison, but from homes and buildings from Oklahoma to Mississippi and beyond. You have sirens even now already warning folks tonight of more of these twisters potentially headed for them. Listen. It sounds like that all over the South. It is a very different scene, however, in the Midwest, with blizzard alerts up across the region for a storm burying some spots and up to a foot of snow today. You see some of it there. I want to get to Kathy Park, who is live for us in Mississippi. And Kathy, I understand that you have made your way to what we believe is damage from a suspected tornado, right?
Hallie, that's right. In fact, just earlier this afternoon, we had a chance to speak with some members of the National Weather Service. They were out here surveying the damage, and it's looking that way. So any moment now, we should get some confirmation, update on whether, in fact, a tornado did touch down. But I want to kind of tick through that everything that we've kind of been tracking up until this point. You mentioned this is a system that we have been following pretty much all week long. And right now, as the storm marches east, 30 million people are still at risk for severe storms. And right now, we're getting reports of downed trees, power lines in North Carolina, Maryland, and Virginia. And really, this is just the beginning. Eventually, though, next couple of hours, the system should be pushing further out east into the water. But you mentioned there is a snowy side to the storm as well. Parts of the Midwest digging out from several inches of snow. And then, of course, we have the South here. We are in Wayne County, Mississippi, which is about 2 hours outside of Jackson. And this is some of the damage left behind. So this is a rural part of the community. We're actually on a chicken farm, and we're told from the family who lives here that they were hunkered down in this home around 5, 6 o'clock. They finished up dinner. They were just kind of enjoying some family time, and they got the alerts on their phones. The power went out, and then they found themselves in a safe space. They hunkered down, but literally in a matter of seconds, they say that's all it took when they realized a tornado struck their home. And then when they came out, they surveyed the damage, and this is what they saw. I mean, there's a chicken coop not too far from where we are standing right now. They have 30,000 chickens on the property here. They're saying that eventually, because there was structural damage, they're going to have to move all the poultry to a different location. Meanwhile, Hallie, we had a chance to speak with a neighbor not too far from here, and she described also living through this storm yesterday. Take a listen.
Our phones went off. The alarms on our phones went off. And
like an alert.
An alert, yes. And we were eating supper, and within 30 seconds later, it was over. I mean, we got up, walked from the table into the living room, and got down on our knees, and I've never prayed so hard in 15 seconds in my life.
And Hallie, it is worth noting that the same community is actually recovering, reeling from another tornado that hit this area just a couple of weeks ago. An EF3 damaged dozens of homes. So this is just adding insult to injury. 4 injuries reported so far from this latest round of storms. Right now, no fatalities. But yeah, I mean, this is just awful just to see some of the damage here. I mean, we have farming equipment, we are told, tossed around, blocking this home, vehicles completely mangled. So this is just an example, just, you know, the power of Mother Nature, Hallie.
It's just so vivid there. Kathy Park, live for us in Mississippi. Kathy, thank you very much for that. Let's bring you back here to Washington, where there's whiplash here and on Wall Street, with the White House taking a step back on the hardline tariff plan, remember, that the president laid out in his big address to the nation less than 24 hours ago. He's now giving Ford, GM, and Stellantis, so the big car makers, a 1-month exemption. So it's like pause for a month on those tariffs that were put in place on Mexico and Canada after conversations with those big three and with the Canadian Prime Minister. The president's expected to talk with Mexico's leader tomorrow. Just as we were coming on the air, we heard a new statement from Ford saying that it appreciates President Trump's work to support its industry. But the whole thing opens up a question of, could there be more to come? Right? Is there another shoe to drop here? The White House press secretary just a few hours ago says the president is open to some other tariff exemptions as well. So it's not just the car makers who like this latest move. So did Wall Street. Look at that. Remember when it was red, red, red right in a row yesterday? Look at today. Now we're showing you green, green, green. The Dow rebounding by something like 500 points. Thing is, just because there's this new compromise with Canada and Mexico doesn't mean there's going to be a compromise with China. Remember, the Trump administration has put tariffs on Chinese imports to 20%, hiking those up. Beijing has responded to that by announcing new tariffs of up to 15% on some U.S. products. Again, this is like trade war stuff. China says that if war is what the U.S. wants, be it a tariff war, a trade war, or any other type of war, we're ready to fight till the end. Brian Chung got our read on how the markets are reacting and what it all means for your money. Kelly O'Donnell is following news for us here out of the White House. And it's so interesting, Kelly, because while the president cast these tariffs as something that automakers felt positively about, it was the Ford head who just a matter of weeks ago said that these tariffs could blow a hole in the industry. Clearly, these car makers were pushing for a carve-out, and they are not the only ones here. So what is the next shoe to drop? Is there going to be one, and when might it come?
Well, very clearly, these corporate leaders have some influence and sway, and we're able to have a conversation with the president that the White House pointed out they requested. And in doing this meeting, getting kind of FaceTime with the president. I don't know if it was a video call or a telephone call, but connection to the president to talk about what they think is at stake was clearly persuasive, because getting a month is at least a start when we've heard the bravado and the strong intent from President Trump that he believes that tariffs are the next way to improve the U.S. economic power. These leaders are saying, no, wait a second, because the trade deal that was put into law during the president's first term, USMCA, which was sort of a retool of the NAFTA of the Clinton era, allowed for parts of automobiles to be produced in Mexico and Canada and in the United States, and then assembled among the three countries. So you would have cars that have an American brand associated with them, but some of their important components might have come from Canada or Mexico. Well, you add tariffs into that mix, and that dramatically changes the cost structure and the process. And so these car makers were able to get some breathing room here, and it certainly sends a signal to other industries about this. Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, spoke about the meeting today, and she brought forward the president's enthusiasm about having this meeting, even though it undercuts his plan for tariffs. Here's what she had to say.
The American people elected this president to have monumental reform and change, including rebuilding our manufacturing base in this country, standing up to foreign nations who have been ripping off our country for decades. And that requires a little bit of disruption. That requires a lot of effort and work that this president is focused on doing.
A little disruption has become the phrase to account for anything that comes from tariffs that is going to cost consumers or businesses more. We've certainly seen that, Hallie.
And she's echoing there, to your point, Kelly, what we heard from, of course, the president last night, this idea of kind of a minor disturbance, a minor ripple effect. I can tell you there are those, and you know this around the country, who worry that it will be more than that, including, for example, those who work in the ag sector, i.e. farmers, as they are often colloquially called. What could this mean for them? Do you anticipate, Kelly, and I know you talk about this idea of potential carve-outs down the road. I mean, is it possible that we could see this sort of chopped, sliced, and diced 10 ways to Sunday by the time it's all said and done?
Well, there are certainly clues to that effect. The Commerce Secretary has indicated the president's willingness to have conversations. We've seen in the past how important constituencies have some sway with the president. That could be possible. At the same time, Canada is trying to have a broader reshaping of these tariffs, pulling some things back. That hasn't gone as well as perhaps was forecast by having additional conversations. The president posted about Justin Trudeau, who is, of course, the prime minister, but the president likes to refer to him as the governor, which is certainly, I'm sure, is not received well in Ottawa, but is right, the president's
51st
way.
State dig, yes.
Yes,
exactly,
he wants them to consider being the 51st state, which seems like a non-starter for Canadians. But he is talking
Kelly,
about
can
the
I just
fact.
say, if the news industry ever needed a Secretary of State, I would probably nominate you, because to suggest that perhaps that doesn't sit well, I think is fair, is very fair.
Well, indeed, Canadians are not pleased with that suggestion. And the president posted about Trudeau saying his country was part of the reason that the tariffs were brought in, with things like issues of illegal immigrants and drugs coming across the border. You have heard a lot of fact-checking on that the fentanyl that has so exercised the president, a serious problem. From Canada, it's at less than 1%. So Canada is sort of expressing some puzzlement as to how they got ensnared in all of this tariff talk.
Kelly O'Donnell, live for us there outside the White House. It is great to see you, Kel. Thank you for all of that. Brian, let me go to you now, and let's talk about the thing that I think, listen, most people care about, which is their money, right? We talk about that 1-month tariff exemption for car makers here. You and I talked, time is a flat circle, it was either yesterday or the day before, about how these tariffs could hike the cost of a new car. Some experts suggest up to like $12,000 more based on some estimates here. Obviously, the president saw those estimates or something similar as well, right? Or was at least implored by these car makers to try to take a shift. So what does this carve-out mean for consumers, and what else would make a difference for people's money down the road?
Yeah, in the Schrodinger's tariffs of it's on or it's off, I also forgot what day it is as well. But look, nonetheless,
did you just come up with that, or is that like a phrase that's a thing now?
I mean, isn't that kind of like an appropriate term, right? It's like the tariffs are on, the tariffs are off. Like, we don't know if it's dead or alive at any given point in time. But at least for right now, for the automotive industry, it seems like they're getting that carve out. It will not apply to them for the time being. But what was really interesting was the note by which the White House explained who these tariffs apply to. It's not just the U.S. automakers. It's any automaker that complies with the USMCA that Kelly just outlined. So it includes some foreign automakers that produce in the countries that are aforementioned as well. So Ford, Nissan, Honda, Toyota, so some Japanese automakers, some German automakers like BMW, Volkswagen as well. So as long as they comply with the USMCA, they would get that exemption. And it's so important because, as Kelly just outlined, every time the parts come in from Mexico, every time a car is assembled in Canada and it comes back into the United States, it gets tariffed multiple times. That's the reason why the cost estimates were so high, but it seems like we've avoided that at least for 1 month.
And there's also something else interesting here. The latest private sector job numbers coming in at about half as much as experts expected. What is the nexus? Is there one between these tariffs, these dropping job numbers, the threat of a slowing economy? Where do they all intersect?
Yeah, what we're talking about is a private measure of payrolls for the month of February. This is coming from ADP. They projected that 77,000 private sector jobs were added in February. That was well below what Wall Street economists were expecting. They were expecting something like 148,000. I want to point out that we won't get the official government jobs report on February until Friday. Of course, we'll talk about that then. But nonetheless, it doesn't necessarily bode well for job creation. Although I want to point out that is for the month of February. The tariffs that we're talking about took effect at midnight, I believe it was yesterday, if I get my calendar right. So I think for that reason, it's a little bit too early to say that these tariffs are directly a result of that. But look, when you have these three major countries that are kind of in this alleyway standoff, pointing the guns at each other, you do wonder if at some point manufacturers are going to say, you know what, just protectively, we might have to start laying people off on the anticipation that these tariffs are going to ratchet up in the future. It's the uncertainty for these types of businesses that is going to very much weigh not just on production, not just on prices, but also employment as well. And we'll have to watch for that in the months to come.
Brian Chung, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Let's talk about today's other big headline here. The CIA now blocking Ukraine from getting key military intelligence from the U.S., at least for now. This is the latest move from the White House to try to put some pressure on Ukraine to get to some kind of a peace deal with Russia. There is a question about how far this intelligence block actually goes. That's not clear. But former intel officials do tell our team that this could hurt Ukraine. It won't completely cripple the country, they say, but it could hurt. Remember, the Trump administration just paused all U.S. military weapons from reaching Ukraine. Let me bring in Courtney Kuby, who's been following this since the wee hours of the pre-dawn morning, Court. If you're boots on the ground in Ukraine, what does this move from the U.S. on this intel block actually functionally, practically mean for you?
Okay, so remember, the U.S. has been giving Ukraine information that includes things that help them target Russian officials. And also, the U.S. provides them with information so that they know when Russians may be coming at them in the front lines. So it's both offensive and defensive information. The U.S. has been providing for more than 3 years. Remember, in fall of 2021, before the invasion, the U.S. was the one who sat down with the Ukrainians and said, look, the Russians are building up on your borders, and you have to be ready for something big that looks like it's coming. Well, now, according to these officials, on the record, today from the director of the CIA, that has been paused, any intelligence sharing. But Hallie, here is the key to this. The U.S. is still sharing that information with allies who are still sharing information with Ukraine. So there still is a decent chance that a lot of information that Ukraine needs, because they are still fighting an active war every single day on the front lines in Ukraine, a lot of that information is still potentially getting to Ukraine. But even one little bit of information that doesn't get to them could have an impact on the battlefield. So the implications here are extremely serious, potentially even catastrophic. The big question is, how long will this last? And during the time that this is ongoing, is what message is that sending to Ukraine, and what message is it sending to the U.S. and Ukrainian allies? A lot of this, at this point, just is clearly about the Trump administration messaging while they are trying to get some sort of a deal with Ukraine.
Okay, and what would the timeline for that be? In other words, the folks that you're talking to, if they were to hazard some sort of educated guess on how long that may take, do we have any sense at this point?
So there's been optimism about the fact that there is going to be some sort of a minerals deal, but then there's another question after that. And look, President Zelensky has even telegraphed that if there is a deal between the two countries for this critical minerals deal, economic partnership, is there any other piece that President Trump and the administration will want out of Ukraine and Zelensky before they reopen the equipment and the weapons and the intelligence to Ukraine? Remember, after the Oval Office meeting and over the weekend, they spoke very openly about how Ukraine needs to have elections and that maybe even President Zelensky should step down. We're not hearing that anymore. But the big question, Hallie, is besides the minerals deal, is there anything else they would want before reopening the sharing?
Courtney Kuby, live for us there at the Pentagon tonight, our Pentagon correspondent. Courtney, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Let's take you over to Capitol Hill, where New York City's embattled mayor, controversial mayor, pick your adjective, he's still the mayor, he's insisting there's no quid pro quo between him and the Trump administration over immigration. Here's Eric Adams.
Are you selling out New Yorkers to save yourself from prosecution?
There's no deal, no quid pro quo, and I did nothing wrong. No quid pro quo, no agreement. I did nothing wrong but serve the people of New York City.
Okay, so there's Mayor Adams, along with some other big city mayors, 3 of them, for this hearing on so-called sanctuary cities. Remember the backdrop to this, the backstory. We covered it here on the show. Adams accused former President Biden with no evidence of launching this criminal investigation into his actions because he was allegedly out of step with Democrats on immigration. Multiple prosecutors in New York and Washington ended up resigning over the Justice Department's push to drop the corruption case against the mayor. The judge overseeing the case pushed back Adams' trial, but as of 5:20-ish Eastern, still has not allowed the DOJ to dismiss the case. Now you are up to speed. Ryan Nobles is joining us on Capitol Hill. This was like the hot ticket today on the Hill, right? Was looking to see how these mayors, but in particular Mayor Adams, because his position and his posture on immigration has been so central to a whole web of other issues, right? How he was going to defend against this idea of no quid pro quo, as he has said and as his attorneys have said, his reps have said for weeks now.
Yeah, and it really put Adams in a bit of a different position than the other 3 mayors that were here testifying in front of this Republican panel. The point by House Oversight Republicans was to really hammer these Democratic mayors, accuse them of being sanctuary cities, protecting what they would describe as illegal migrants that are not in the country responsibly and should be removed. But Adams ended up taking quite a bit of heat from Democrats on the panel because of this interplay that he's had with the Trump administration and how it relates to his pending criminal trial. And what you saw Adams do here was try and thread the needle here. Talked about how his hands were really tied because of not only the federal laws, but the state and local laws on the books that prevented him from doing everything that he wanted to do to enforce immigration law and keep New York safe. Listen to a little bit of what Adams had to say.
I do not control who enters or remains in our country, but I do have to manage the population that is within our city. Comprehensive immigration reform is long overdue. While the solution is not within my control as a mayor, I am committed to working with federal officials to go after violent gangs and those who harm residents of our city.
And so what you heard there from the mayor, what we heard from a lot of these other Democrats, is they think they need federal help. They say the law needs to change to make their jobs easier, Hallie.
Okay, so as immigration is in the spotlight from the political perspective on Capitol Hill, where you're standing here in Washington, it is also in the spotlight down along the border because that is where the vice president spent part of his day. There he is. You see J.D. Vance, who landed there a few hours ago. He's with the defense secretary, the director of national intelligence. And this is kind of like the post-joint address road trip that you sometimes see cabinet officials, the president or the vice president take. Listen, we know what the president and what the vice president want to do. They want to get a whole lot more money for the border and for those deportations that the White House has been undertaking along with DHS. Are they going to get it?
Well, Republicans are unified in their agreement that they should get this money, but it's just the form and fashion and the mechanism by which that money is delivered to the White House to use for this mass deportation plan. And that all falls underneath these budget negotiations regarding the reconciliation package. And there are a fair number of Republicans, particularly in the Senate, who believe that they should move that border piece first, get that out of the way. They know they can get 51 votes for that without a problem in the Senate. They know they can get 218 votes for that in the House. So they should just get it out of the way, and then deal with the thornier issues of taxes and budget cuts and things along those lines in a second package, give them more time to negotiate. Right now, the insistence by the House Speaker, and it's a plan that President Trump has endorsed, is to do it all at once, to try and leverage the feelings that Republicans have about both of these issues to get it all through in one package. Right now, though, they're really not even going to address that until they get through this government funding fight, which, of course, we have a deadline of a week from Friday, Hallie,
I know,
where there's the possibility the government could shut down.
I'm aware, Ryan. All of our viewers have it circled on their calendars, March 14th. It's not going to shut down. It is going to shut down. What's up?
I would say today they don't have a deal. And if they don't have a deal, then you have to assume that they're barreling toward a shutdown. I think at the very least, Hallie, we are going to be nervous about this next week. Okay. Maybe they find some sort of immediate quick path out of this. But right now, they're pretty far away from coming up with any sort of an agreement that would lead you to believe the government will remain open.
So not too early to say barreling towards a shutdown. You don't think they're tiptoeing toward it? They're not crawling toward one? You feel like it's full speed ahead?
Barreling is the adjective I would use to describe this current situation, yes.
Our chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles live for us in Washington. Ryan, thank you so much. Listen, tonight, we're going to talk about some of these numbers that are so interesting to folks that are looking to maybe buy a house soon. One of the biggest jumps in people looking for mortgages now in years. This is after mortgage rates dropped to their lowest point in months. The number of people applying for these new mortgages or refinancing the ones they already have jumped something like 20% last week, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association. That is a big number, as our CNBC real estate correspondent Diana Olick knows. It's so good to see you.
You too.
Okay, why?
Okay, well, it is a big number. In fact, it is one of the biggest numbers we've seen in the last 5 years, top three, I'll tell you that. So why are mortgage rates coming down? I won't get into the technicals of the bond markets. I will not, I swear, I promise. But what it is about is what you're talking about. It's concern over tariffs. It's that, barreling toward a shutdown, all that stuff that you're talking about, the consumer feeling concerned and consumer weakness, that's pulling interest rates down, and that's offering an opportunity for people to refinance because a couple of people, not a lot of people bought in the last 2 years, but they're the ones at the higher interest rates. Most of us have rates well below what's being offered today, but those who may have bought in the last 2 years, they could see some savings.
If you're sitting pretty at 3.5%, you're probably not. You're not.
No, we're up over 6.
But let's say you don't have a house. Let's say you're one of the many people, and as a millennial, I think there's a lot in that generation who are like, man, I wish I could afford a house, but there's just been a series of things sort of economically that have stopped that or made it harder to do. Is this maybe a time to start thinking about speeding up that search? What would experts say?
Well, so, okay, mortgage rates being lower is great. We saw a 9% jump in the purchase applications. Now, 9% might seem like a lot, but you're coming off the lowest volumes since 1995, literally. So I don't want to get mathy, but when you come off a low volume and you see any kind of move higher, it's going to be a big percentage jump, right? So they're also up against really high prices. Again, that consumer confidence is not there. This is the biggest investment you're ever going to make, buying a home. If you're not confident about the economy, you're not going to jump in. Rates are a little better than they were. You know, we're seeing them the lowest in several months. And so that's helping some buyers get in there. There's a lot of demand. There's still not a lot of supply out there.
That's right.
That's the problem.
Okay.
Because if you have 3.5%, are you going to sell?
That's right.
No.
Diana Oleg, there's always something to watch in your beat. There's always something going on. Thanks for coming down to the first floor with us. Good to see you. Right after the break, we got a lot more to get to, including a tennis star getting some unwanted attention from a fixated fan recently. Now, she's speaking out for the first time ahead of her first match since that incident. And weight loss drugs may help some folks lose weight, but for a cost. The new announcement from one company that could help bring that down. Tonight, another move to make those really popular weight loss drugs available to more people, with the maker of Wegovy, Novo Nordisk, telling users you can get it for half price through a new direct-to-consumer online pharmacy. If you're like, well, wait a second, what's the catch? There is one. You've got to pay out of pocket. But here's the thing. This is now an option for people whose insurance will not cover Wegovy. They can now pay $500 a month for it instead of something like $13.50. So you take it weekly, you pay it monthly. The company says they're trying to make Wegovy more available and make sure patients use the branded medication instead of cheaper compounded copycats. Remember, those copycats became popular during the semaglutide drug shortage in this country, a shortage that is now over, according to the FDA. Rahima Ellis is joining us now. Okay, so there's a couple of interesting threads for this here. If you are somebody who, during that semaglutide shortage, was like, I got to go to these compounded drugs, to some of these other places, because I cannot actually get my hands on the brand name. Now that you've got these brand names like Novo Nordisk offering this at a, I'm going to put it in quotes, discount. It is discounted from sort of the rack rate, if you will. How does that affect the industry? How does that affect the market?
Well, if the FDA had allowed these off-brand, cheaper pharmaceuticals to come onto the market because of the shortage of the name brand weight loss drugs. But now that shortage doesn't exist anymore, and so you've got those big name companies like Wegovy, which are able to produce. Now, the thing about it is these drugs are so popular, they've decided that they're going to reduce the cost of these drugs. Take a look. We've got a full screen. I want to show you about the cost of these things. It's a lot of money. We're talking about over $1,000 for some of these items. Look at Ozempic, about $1,000. Wegovy, it's over $1,000, and it goes on in that direction. But will you able to get these off-brand names? Maybe not, because it was the FDA that gave these companies permission to produce them. Now the FDA may be taking that permission away and telling those off-brand names are going to have to wind down. And there are these options the big name brand companies now offering so that people can get these pharmaceuticals at a lower price. Hallie?
So here's the question, though. We know all about supply and demand. If, in fact, there is a more affordable way, and again, affordable is all relative, but a more affordable way to get something like Wegovy, could that potentially lead to another shortage down the road?
Who knows?
Okay.
I don't have the crystal
totally
ball
fair
that says
answer. Yes.
that says that, but anything could be possible if the demand is there and the supply cannot meet that demand. The FDA may go and resort to what it did before, where we are right now, and allow that these off-brand names to come onto the market. But I don't know the answer to that specifically at this moment.
Rahima Ellis, we're so glad to have you with us. Thank you for breaking that down for us tonight. I appreciate it. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1. One of the alleged planners of the 2021 Abbey Gate bombing at Kabul airport arriving in the USA today to face criminal charges. Of course, that was the suicide bombing that killed 13 American service members and 170 Afghan civilians trying to leave Afghanistan. He is due in court next week. Number 2, the Vatican says Pope Francis is still in stable condition with no recent episodes of having trouble breathing. That's, of course, been a concern. That's been a question over the course of these last couple of weeks as he's been hospitalized with double pneumonia. Although he could not be at the Ash Wednesday service, the Vatican says he did get some work done and participated in the rite of the blessing of the holy ashes. Number 3, a new study says vaping doesn't actually help smokers quit, and it could actually keep people addicted to nicotine. The study found that the process of quitting smoking was about 4% lower among people who ended up vaping every day. Number 4, after 23 years, ESPN's Around the Horn will air its final episode in May. ESPN says a 30-minute version of SportsCenter will air in its place during the summer. This is a show that is especially beloved by my friends here in Washington, D.C. To put it in perspective, this show, Around the Horn, aired something like 4,900 episodes over the course of its pretty incredible run, pretty groundbreaking one. Number 5, and some more TV news close to home tonight, and an exciting move for a familiar face, as our own Tom Yamas is set to become the next anchor of Nightly News. That's after Lester shared last week that he would be leaving the show after a decade in the chair. A big congratulations to Tom. We are cheering him on as he takes over the broadcast. And by the way, you'll still get to see him right here on NBC News Now. He's also going to anchor Top Story with that double duty beginning later on this summer. Elon Musk is continuing his role as White House, I guess, ideas person in chief alongside President Trump as he's putting forward some new thoughts on what he'd like to see in the federal government. Not just those massive cuts to the federal workforce that his Doge has been implementing, but he's also telling a tech conference today he thinks the country should privatize big parts of the federal government, including the Postal Service, including Amtrak. That's according to a source in the room with Musk. He's also opening the door to another potentially controversial move, pardoning the former police officer convicted of killing George Floyd. It's all in response to a petition from Ben Shapiro calling for President Trump to pardon Derek Chauvin. And here's where Musk comes in. Writing on X, the idea is, in his words, something to think about. Now remember, Chauvin's been convicted on both the federal and the state level. He's serving 2 20-plus year sentences simultaneously right now. NBC's Marquise Francis is following this for us. A presidential pardon, Marquise, is not going to get Chauvin out of prison sooner for the federal, for the state piece of it, of course. So talk through some of the dynamics at play, because it's a lot of it seems like this is potentially a political move if the president were to pursue this or consider it more seriously.
Yeah, for sure, Hallie. I mean, just to reiterate, if President Trump were to pardon Derek Chauvin, it would do nothing to actually reduce his sentence, because it would only throw out his federal conviction. That state conviction, he's serving 22 years for second-degree unintentional murder, would still stand. But the fact that this is out there in the ethos, Elon Musk and Ben Shapiro putting it out, it likely gives something for conservatives to get behind. If you think about it and think back in the summer of 2020, the summer of reckoning that a lot of people talked about, there was a lot of people that came out and protested after the murder of George Floyd, not only in Minneapolis, but around the country and around the world. And a lot of things came out from that, whether it was policing policies or things like diversity, equity, and inclusion in corporations and on college campuses. But already within less than 2 months in President Trump's time in office the second time around, a lot of these things have been done away with, right? And so we're seeing this post as possibly taking a look at the impact, maybe the outsized impact of conservative minds like an Elon Musk and a Ben Shapiro. And the fact that we're even talking about it is probably likely what they wanted. In addition to that post, Ben Shapiro put a link where people could actually sign up for that petition. And I want to read part of it where he wrote, quote, "Make no mistake, the Derek Chauvin conviction represents the defining achievement of the woke movement in American politics. The country cannot turn the page on that dark, divisive, and racist era without righting this terrible wrong." And so pretty much the fact that this is out there, even though Derek Chauvin's conviction won't be, or at least his prison time won't go down, the fact that we're talking about it is getting people riled up. Hallie?
Marquise Francis, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. NBC News covers hundreds of other stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Southern Bureau, one boy in Alabama being called a hero for saving his younger sister from a house fire. The family says the whole thing was so chaotic, they didn't realize 8-year-old Mia was still inside. But her 10-year-old brother ran back into the burning house to grab her. It gives you chills just thinking about it, just hearing about it. Everyone, fortunately, amazingly, is doing just fine. Also out of our Southern Bureau, police in Florida say somebody swallowed about $800,000 worth of stolen jewelry from Tiffany. You see him grabbing it here. Apparently, when he was stopped by police, he then swallowed it. It was a pair of earrings. The man is now facing several charges. out of our Midwest Bureau at a time when the cost of eggs has been spiking. One farm in Michigan says it'll give away 12,000 eggs in the next 3 months. Once a week, the farm says workers like delivery drivers or snowplowers can grab a carton of eggs, no charge. The owner says he's doing it as a thank you to people who work hard but who don't get a lot of recognition for it. Listen, you love to see a good person doing good deeds. Gotta love it. Also tonight, FIFA's making some new moves to try to drum up some excitement over the 2026 World Cup, which kicks off about a year from now, year and change, next June. They're announcing the first ever Super Bowl-style halftime show for FIFA. Who's the headliner? Coldplay. They're booked to put together a roster of artists to perform at a halftime show during the final match in New Jersey. I should say, we don't know if they're going to be the headliner. We can't say for sure if Chris Martin and Coldplay are actually going to hit the stage, but they are sort of organizing and assembling all this. Still months away from the first matches, but the halftime show announcement comes as some in the sports world are flagging some pretty lackluster interest around the whole World Cup thing. Listen.
The panic is very much there. The fact that there is just like no recognition. If this was Germany and the World Cup was coming, the country would already be dancing. It would already be celebrating. There would already be just a huge amount of noise. It would be all you're hearing about.
This is not the U.S.'s first rodeo. They hosted Solo back in '94, so that was quite a minute ago. But next year, it's a joint push, right? North America, U.S., Mexico, Canada. You can see where all the matches are going to be played. NBC's Priscilla Thompson is following this for us from Houston, where 7 World Cup matches are scheduled. And what's so interesting is if you look at some numbers from last year, less than a third of Americans are interested in the World Cup. So there is maybe some pressure on FIFA to try to get people pumped up. Although I will also say, Priscilla, as I put on my political journalist hat, if this were like an election, we would say there's still a long way to go. The people maybe don't start tuning in until much closer to the date that it actually happens. And I wonder if maybe some of that's at play now here.
Yeah, Hallie, I'm sure that there is a bit of that at play, but the World Cup organizers are wasting no time trying to get folks excited, even as we are quite a ways out with these announcements that we're hearing about this Super Bowl-style halftime performance. I mean, what is more American than a Super Bowl-style halftime performance? And we now know that Coldplay is going to be curating that list of performers. No word yet, as you mentioned, on whether or not they will be performing, but certainly a group that a lot of Americans and folks around the world are interested in. So we'll be watching for updates there. And the World Cup organizers have also said that they're going to be doing a Times Square takeover in New York City for the semifinals and the finals match. So another opportunity to kind of drum up support here in the U.S. And they're going to be doing these short films about the various cities and sites where these games are going to be held, including, of course, right here in Houston, but also in Dallas, where we heard officials there briefing earlier today saying that they are going to be the international broadcasting center for the entire tournament. And here's what the mayor had to say about that responsibility.
These folks are coming from around the world to do a very important job. They're going to be here for 7 months, and we have to provide them with all the things they need to be able to do their job and to live. And so we're honored, we're proud, and we are absolutely ready.
And another big question as it relates to this halftime performance is how long will it be? Halftime in the World Cup is about 15 minutes. As we know, for the Super Bowl, it's usually about 30 minutes to provide time to set up the stage and break down the stage. So we'll be watching carefully to see how long that performance is going to be. Hallie?
Our most recent sort of halftime show comparison, of course, is Kendrick Lamar at the Super Bowl not too long ago. And the NFL seemed to be making this bet that even people who weren't football fans may tune in to see Kendrick, to see everybody who's performing. Same deal here. I mean, do you think that's some of what is driving FIFA? Are they trying to tap into some of that?
Yeah, it might be. We know that every year there are tons of non-football fans who watch just for the halftime show. And this year in particular, you had Kendrick Lamar being the first solo rap artist performing. There was a lot of questions about would Taylor Swift perhaps join him on stage? Would he perform Not Like Us? And so that was driving a lot of the viewership there. I will say that in the grand scheme of things, the American audience for the Super Bowl usually pales in comparison to the global audience that the FIFA World Cup is able to get. But at the same time, U.S. viewership tends to lag when it comes to soccer. While it is a sport that is growing here in popularity, the viewership numbers do tend to lag. So it's very possible that FIFA is trying to drive some of that up this year as we are among the host countries. Hallie?
Priscilla Thompson, are you going to go next year? Like, was that going to be, even if you weren't on assignment, would you go?
I mean, I got to. It's going to be in Houston. How could I not?
That's right. Okay, that's what I like to hear. Priscilla Thompson, thank you very much. Our future World Cup correspondent joining us now, of course, from Texas. Thanks, Priscilla. Still to come here on the show, prosecutors breaking up a ticket theft ring that made hundreds of thousands of dollars off of Swifties, basically. Taylor Swift Eras Tour tickets. The message they're sending to other potential fraudsters. Next. StubHub now says it is stepping up security to prevent ticket resale schemes after New York prosecutors charged a cybercrime crew of potentially ripping off something like $600,000 from Swifties. We're talking stolen Taylor Swift Eras Tour tickets and other expensive events. Prosecutors say the two allegedly involved worked at a third-party contractor for StubHub. They supposedly used their access to StubHub's system to take tickets that had already been sold and had their co-conspirators download the tickets and then resell them on StubHub for a profit. Now, I say Swifties, it wasn't just Swifties. Apparently, they also tried to steal tickets for Adele and Ed Sheeran concerts, for NBA games and the U.S. Open. Danny Savalos is joining us now. This is a big plot, right? These people are accused of trying to steal nearly 1,000 tickets. How serious are these charges? And what is the message that is meant to send with this crackdown here?
Well, at least two of the charges have statutory maximums of 15 years. But this is a curious crime, one that I expect was discovered relatively quickly. Tickets to events are not fungible items. They're not like cash or laundry detergent that you can't track. They are finite, and each one is unique. And presumably there was somebody waiting who legitimately bought a ticket and never received it. So I have to imagine that this is a scheme that simply could not have gone on for very long unless StubHub maybe just missed it in its initial stages. But this is one that ultimately has quite an electronic trail, so no surprise here that prosecutors were able to track down the people allegedly responsible, both here in the States and elsewhere.
StubHub says the customers that were affected have since had those tickets replaced or they were given their money back. This does speak, I think, to a broader moment here, if you step back a little bit, something we've talked before about on the show, the pressure that a lot of these ticket companies are facing over prices. Again, separate from this scheme, kind of a piece here. Look at how much, nearly $26, the ticket average ticket price. Back in the mid-90s, when I know, were, 7 years old, the average ticket was like $25.81, so $52 adjusted for inflation. You can see what it is now, right? It is more than doubled, basically. But people are still buying. One survey found that especially Gen Z, they say they overspend on events. They want to go to live stuff. This is part of, the experience, especially if you're a youth, a young person who wants to go be a part of it.
Well, that's the dilemma. On the one hand, you're right. Ticket prices have gone up. But on the other hand, tickets to events are in that category of things for which demand is not only elastic, it's not only sometimes infinite, it's totally unpredictable. It's the same with markets like luxury watches. They have a market value. They have a resale value. It's not really tethered to reality. So these are all tickets that people are choosing to purchase at the prices that the market sustains. So certainly there is a complaint to be made that the prices have steadily risen so much since I was but a child in not the 90s, more like the 70s. But still, these ticket prices are something that people are willing to pay those dollar amounts. And therefore, as long as they're willing to do so, the market prices will stay essentially where they are.
It's so interesting. Wait, I have to know, though, what was your first live show?
Oh, Michael Jackson, 1980, I think it was 2.
Danny Savalos. We learn something new every day. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We've got more coverage picking up right now. We are coming on the air with that deadly storm system slamming the South. Take a look at this. The wind totally ripping the roof off of a jail in Mississippi. Look at that. You see it peeling back. Inmates, people still inside. The whole thing downing trees, seeing trees into homes. And tonight, new warnings of more tornadoes. We are live on the ground in Mississippi. Also tonight, why President Trump's pumping the brakes on tariffs for car makers for now after some Wall Street whiplash for his new, essentially, tariffs on Canada and Mexico. what this reversal means for your money when we take you live from the White House in just a sec. Then the new denials tonight from New York City's mayor that there was no quid pro quo between him and the president to work together on immigration in exchange for the dropping of his corruption case. How Eric Adams is positioning himself in front of Congress today. Plus, a tennis star returns to the court just hours from now after a scary stalking incident, which she's just said late today. Plus, is now the time to actually buy a home? Why mortgage rates are dropping even though the Fed's interest rate is not. That's coming up later in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and tonight we are looking at that monster storm system pummeling the country right now that has turned deadly, killing at least 3 people with dozens more hurt. In Mississippi, one of the state's hardest hit, you can see it took only seconds for the wind to yank the roof right off of a county jail, basically in one fell swoop. You see it ripped off. At least 7 people were inside. Also in that state, officials say a man was electrocuted and killed after trying to put out a fire sparked by a downed power line. And just miles away, another man died when the wind sent a tree slamming into the car he was driving. You see trees destroying homes in multiple towns. Just a day after 10 tornadoes ripped through the South, 7 of them in Oklahoma alone. You're looking at some video from Oklahoma here now. Roofs torn from homes and buildings. And now already tonight, sirens are warning folks of more twisters potentially to come. Listen. So the sound of sirens and tornado warnings there, but a very different scene in the Midwest with blizzard alerts up across the region for a storm burying some spots and up to a foot of snow today. Let's get to Kathy Park, who's live for us in Mississippi. And Kathy, I understand you're standing in front of some of the destruction from what we believe to be a tornado that passed through here, right? Are more on the way tonight? Do we know?
Hey there, Hallie. So fortunately, the storm has moved on out of here. So it is portions of the mid-Atlantic. They're kind of in the bullseye right now. And as you mentioned, this is a storm that we have been tracking all week long. And right now, 30 million are at risk of severe storms. We're already getting reports of downed trees and power lines in Maryland, Virginia, and North Carolina. You mentioned there's a snowy side to the storm. Parts of the Midwest, they're digging out from several inches of snow. Blizzard-like conditions yesterday. In fact, in Nebraska, it was so bad, portions of the interstate had to be shut down. But yeah, here in the South, we actually just got confirmation from the National Weather Service that an EF2 actually touched down yesterday in this area. We are in Wayne County, Mississippi, just 2 hours outside of Jackson. And this is just some of the damage that we are seeing. The family that we spoke with earlier today, they were hunkered down in this home. It was around 5 or 6 o'clock. They just wrapped up dinner. They were enjoying some family time. They said they got alerts on their phones, and then the power just went off. And then they knew what was about to happen, so they found a safe space. And they said in a matter of seconds, that's when they knew the tornado struck their home. They come outside. Obviously, it was very dark outside, but they knew they had some significant damage. And, of course, earlier this morning when they were walking around, they noticed debris was scattered just about everywhere. This home, the frame of this home is barely hanging on. They have large farming equipment on this property. All of that was tossed around. There are 30,000 chickens on this property as well, and there was infrastructure damage, so they plan on removing the poultry later on this week. But I had a chance, Hallie, to speak with some members of the National Weather Service earlier today, and they had this to say about what's to come as far as the peak severe weather season. Take a listen.
Obviously, we see what they can do even in, February and March in times that most people don't expect tornadoes. But as we move into actual what we consider a true peak tornado season, it's only could potentially get more active.
And Hallie, it is worth noting that this community, they are still reeling from another tornado. It happened just a couple of weeks ago. That was an EF3. Dozens of homes were damaged at that time. Fortunately, no fatalities, and no fatalities this time around, but several injuries are being reported. In fact, I should note there were workers on this property in a mobile home. They were tossed around. We were told they are recovering from their injuries, but they are expected to be okay, Hallie.
It's just so scary. Kathy Park, live for us there in Mississippi, covering all of it. Kathy, thank you. To whiplash now on Wall Street and Washington, with the White House taking a step back on the hardline tariff plan the president laid out in that big speech to the nation less than 24 hours ago. Now, the president's giving car makers a 1-month exemption, so a 1-month break from those tariffs on Mexico and Canada, after conversations with the big three and with the Canadian Prime Minister. The president's expected to speak with Mexico's president tomorrow. Tonight, you've got Ford, Stellantis, GM, all sharing their appreciation for the president's announcement. You had seen some of them. I'm thinking of the Ford executive in particular, who just weeks ago had suggested that long-term tariffs of this magnitude could, in his words, blow a hole in the auto industry altogether. Obviously, you see the relief now from those car makers. New move, of course, opens up the question, could there be more to come, right? More compromises, quote unquote. The White House press secretary says the president is open to other exemptions. Wall Street is rallying on this news with the Dow up all in green. Let's bring in Kelly O'Donnell and Brian Chung joining us now. And Kelly, in just the last little bit here, the ag secretaries, we talk about the potential for carve-outs. The agriculture secretary, Brooke Rollins, has now suggested to Bloomberg News that there may be an opening for yet another carve-out from somebody, a group you and I talked about just within the last hour, farmers, potentially helping them as well, giving them some relief.
So maybe we're entering the deal-making phase of the Trump tariffs, where Brooke Rollins, who in one breath has said that she believes the president is keenly focused on this and she trusts his judgment, and at the same time she's saying she is hopeful that there will be some kind of relief for the agriculture sector. We've seen how in the past tariffs have been very harmful to American farmers, leading to, at points, having to have bailouts to sort of give them some fortification to keep their businesses going. So people are now seeing that when there are tariffs, if there is a strong constituency and a persuadable argument, maybe the president will adjust or back away or give more time, a variety of different options. So Secretary Rollins is hinting that she would like to see that, as we saw from the automakers who were able to get a meeting with the president, were able to make their case that having some parts that are made in Canada and Mexico puts American auto manufacturers at a real disadvantage if you put a higher tax on those elements of the cars they're putting together. The original intent was to have free trade across the continents and to be able to fortify the business by having some products built in Mexico and in Canada, and others here in the United States are assembled in different places. And so now they're getting a break, about 30 days. Now, it'll be an interesting thing to see when we get to day 25 where we're at, if there will be an attempt to extend this somehow, or if there will be another adjustment. The president was certainly pounded by the markets, and now today some reprieve, so maybe that will be a signal as well as to how he wants to handle it. Caroline Leavitt, the president's press secretary, responded to all of these machinations today when she spoke to reporters in the briefing room.
The American people elected this president to have monumental reform and change, including rebuilding our manufacturing base in this country, standing up to foreign nations who have been ripping off our country for decades. And that requires a little bit of disruption. That requires a lot of effort and work that this president is focused on doing.
Again, a little disruption is part of the Trump community speak for the cost of these tariffs and the impact they may have on businesses and consumers.
Kelly, you make a good point, right, about this sort of deadline watch now that we will be on in less than a month, with the anticipation kind of building again. We're also, just before we move on to Brian here, because you referenced, the little disturbance that people may feel. We heard it from Caroline, we heard it from the president. He said that in that primetime address to the nation just last night, and we're now learning in just the last couple of minutes here that about 36.6 million people watched that address. The Nielsen ratings, and Kelly, you know as well as I do from many years covering this president, including as a candidate, he keeps an eye on those ratings. He likes to see a big audience. We know that the top 100 most watched TV broadcasts of 2024, almost all of them related to sports, specifically to pro football. Some election stuff got in there, debates, et cetera. Talk us through sort of the importance for the president and the White House to have a big platform for any president when they're delivering these kinds of speeches.
Well, it is really a sign of our times, because the fractured viewing audience, where people have so many choices on so many devices, very different from a generation or two ago where there was collective experience of people watching. So you talk about the sporting events or the big political moments that will bring people together as it's happening. A State of the Union style address. This was a joint address to Congress, but it had that State of the Union feeling. And certainly the Trump team emphasized that part of it. They weren't as caught up in the fact that it's not yet a State of the Union. But they certainly tried to plan for big TV moments where we saw some of the use of real citizens who were in the box on the upper part of the chamber with the First Lady, where the president was able to make grand demonstrations. A young man admitted to West Point, another young man recovering or dealing with cancer, being named an honorary Secret Service agent. Those kinds of big, broad strokes. Also the naming of a wildlife refuge for a woman's daughter who had been killed. And so those kinds of things give people the wait, I want to see it sort of experience. And certainly the White House today was emphasizing ratings and reviews and snap polls that were favorable to them.
Kelly O'Donnell covered it all for us so capably, as she does, from outside the White House tonight. Kel, thank you. Brian Chung, let me go over to you. And at some point in the last 72 hours, you and I talked about exactly the scenario that may play out here, according to Secretary Rollins, speaking with Bloomberg News, the idea of a carve-out for farmers, right, in the ag sector, as some of that pressure had been building, not just on the White House, but we understand perhaps on Congress as well.
Yeah, well, as we talked about kind of the tariffs, the first thing that we talked about were automotives because of the intertwinedness nature of that particular industry between our neighbors to the north and south. But then the thing that we talked about after that was about produce and the types of crops that we bring in from our neighbors to the north and south. So from Canada, we bring in potatoes, we bring in grains. From Mexico, we bring in fruits and vegetables. These are all major types of things that you will see at your store on a daily basis. Strawberries, depending on the season, it comes from Mexico in some cases. So for that reason, we've heard retailers like Target warn that grocery prices were likely going to increase on consumers as a result of these tariffs. Because, again, if the importer that brings those strawberries from Mexico into the United States has to pay 25% more, they then charge that to Target. Target then charges that to us. Maybe not one for one, but you're going to get some of that. So if there is some sort of carve-out, you would expect that these types of producers, these types of farmers would likely put the pressure on the president to want to give them a carve-out like the automotive industry got as well. But there's another thing I want to point out here, which is that we do bring in agricultural products from Canada as well. And when we talk about these retaliatory tariffs, if you look at a product like potash, for example, again, I'm not a farmer, but I've talked to farmers that say this is a major type of fertilizer that they use to grow crops here in the United States. Yes, there's the immediate impact of grocery prices going up because of the tariffs we put on. But if Canada puts the tariffs on potash, well, then that can make even domestic production here in the United States more expensive for farmers that are growing corn in Iowa and then selling it in the United States. That's where you can kind of see the ripple effects of all this and why the ag part of it is such a big part of the conversation.
Brian Chung, thank you very much for that. Good to see you as always. Appreciate it. Let's get to some news from overseas now, because the CIA, we've learned today, is now blocking Ukraine from getting key military intelligence from the U.S., at least for now. This is the latest move from the White House to try and get Ukraine to reach some kind of peace deal with Russia. Here's a question, though. How far does this intelligence block go? That's not super clear. Former intel officials tell our team that while it'll hurt Ukraine, it's probably not going to cripple them altogether. Remember, the Trump administration just paused U.S. military weapons from reaching Ukraine. I want to bring in Courtney Kuby now.
If you're boots on the ground in Ukraine, what does this move from the U.S. on this intel block actually functionally, practically mean for you?
Okay, so remember, the U.S. has been giving Ukraine information that includes things that help them target Russian officials. And also, the U.S. provides them with information so that they know when Russians may be coming at them in the front lines. So it's both offensive and defensive information. The U.S. has been providing for more than 3 years. Remember, in fall of 2021, before the invasion, the U.S. was the one who sat down with the Ukrainians and said, look, the Russians are building up on your borders, and you have to be ready for something big that looks like it's coming. Well, now, according to these officials, on the record, today from the director of the CIA, that has been paused, any intelligence sharing. But Hallie, here is the key to this. The U.S. is still sharing that information with allies who are still sharing information with Ukraine. So there still is a decent chance that a lot of information that Ukraine needs, because they are still fighting an active war every single day on the front lines in Ukraine, a lot of that information is still potentially getting to Ukraine. But even one little bit of information that doesn't get to them could have an impact on the battlefield. So the implications here are extremely serious, potentially even catastrophic. The big question is, how long will this last? And during the time that this is ongoing, is what message is that sending to Ukraine, and what message is it sending to the U.S. and Ukrainian allies? A lot of this, at this point, just is clearly about the Trump administration messaging while they are trying to get some sort of a deal with Ukraine.
Okay, and what would the timeline for that be? In other words, the folks that you're talking to, if they were to hazard some sort of educated guess on how long that may take, do we have any sense at this point?
So there's been optimism about the fact that there is going to be some sort of a minerals deal, but then there's another question after that. And look, President Zelensky has even telegraphed that. If there is a deal between the two countries for this critical minerals deal, economic partnership, is there any other piece that President Trump and the administration will want out of Ukraine and Zelensky before they reopen the equipment and the weapons and the intelligence to Ukraine? Remember, after the Oval Office meeting and over the weekend, they spoke very openly about how Ukraine needs to have elections and that maybe even President Zelensky should step down. We're not hearing that anymore. But the big question, Hallie, is besides the minerals deal, is there anything else they would want before reopening the sharing?
Courtney Kube, live for us there at the Pentagon tonight, our Pentagon correspondent. Courtney, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Let's take you over to Capitol Hill now, where New York City's embattled / controversial / defiant mayor is insisting there is no quid pro quo between him and the Trump administration over immigration. Here's Eric Adams.
Are you selling out New Yorkers to save yourself from prosecution?
There's no deal. No quid pro quo, and I did nothing wrong. No quid pro quo, no agreement. I did nothing wrong but serve the people of New York City.
Mayor Adams is there at the Capitol, along with some other big city mayors, for this hearing on sanctuary cities today. It's kind of the hot ticket on the Hill. Remember, the backstory to this, Adams accused former President Biden without any evidence of launching a criminal investigation into him because he was allegedly out of step with Democrats on immigration. Multiple prosecutors in New York and Washington then resigned over the DOJ's push to drop the corruption case against the mayor under President Trump. The judge overseeing the case pushed back Adams's trial, but as of about 6:20-ish Eastern, still has not allowed the DOJ to dismiss the case. Ryan Nobles is live for us on Capitol Hill. What was so interesting about this is not just the focus on Mayor Adams, partly because he is in this very high-profile position. You saw his defense of himself, repeating no quid pro quo, which his reps had said previously, too. You've got a number of mayors here who have become, in many ways, targets of Republicans over this issue of immigration.
Yeah, you're talking about the mayors of Denver, the mayor of Boston, and the mayor of Chicago, three regular targets by Republicans as it relates to immigration and the accusation that these are sanctuary cities, a label that many of these mayors would reject. And what you saw them do today was, first of all, defend their migrant community, saying that the migrants that have come into their cities have been offering additive value to the fabric and the community of the city. And then also saying that if there is a criminal element associated with migrants coming into their cities, they too want those migrants removed. But they also said that they need to have the laws changed in order to make that process easier. Listen to a little bit of what all three of these mayors had to say.
As mayor, I have to protect the health and safety of everyone in our city. As a man of faith, I have a moral obligation to care for those in need.
Chicago's welcoming city ordinance and our other laws and policies do not lead to more crime. They do not prevent cooperation with federal law enforcement on criminal matters.
We are the safest major city in the nation because we are safe for everyone.
And so what these mayors argued is that this isn't a Republican-Democrat issue. This isn't even a native-born American issue versus a migrant issue. This is a human issue, and that they're doing all they can to keep everyone in their city safe. They also pointed out, Hallie, that a lot of the migrant crisis issues they were forced to deal with was the result of Texas Governor Greg Abbott shipping many of these migrants to their cities. And they said part of the big thing that they tried to do was make sure that those that needed and were qualified, available for asylum, got the resources they needed to begin that process, which is something that they said they did not get when they were in Texas.
I mean, listen, the president, the White House, the administration has been very clear on what they want, which is more money for the border, more money for deportations. But what was interesting was the president was clear on something else that relates to your beat there on the Hill that seemed to catch some Republicans by surprise, and that is the CHIPS Act, calling it a horrible, horrible thing, saying you should just get rid of the CHIPS Act and whatever is left over, addressing Speaker Mike Johnson pretty directly. Now, Ryan,
I know that, we have a bit of an age gap here between you and me, but I am old enough to remember when Speaker Johnson, prior to the November election, got in a storm of trouble for like 24 hours when he hinted at the possibility of rolling back chips. So what happened between now and then? Is this the president sort of throwing a challenge to Republicans? Is he serious? Is it a trial balloon? What's up?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point that you raise, Hallie. And we have to remember the context in which Speaker Johnson took all that heat. And perhaps it was a tell that we're now seeing a play out in real time. He was in a district in upstate New York with an embattled congressman that was seeking re-election. That district in central New York and specifically Syracuse, New York, it was benefiting greatly from the CHIPS Act. There was a massive investment from the CHIPS Act for a chip maker there that was leading to thousands of high-paying jobs. And the congressman at the time, Brandon Williams, who lost re-election, cringed when Mike Johnson said that they wanted to repeal the CHIPS Act. And that's because it had overwhelming support from both Republicans and Democrats. I think more than 30 Republicans voted for it in the House, 15 or 17 Republicans voted for it in the Senate. This was a bipartisan bill. And today, many of those Republicans that voted for this bill are scratching their heads as to what Donald Trump was talking about. Take a listen.
The CHIPS and Science Act, at least the CHIPS portion, has mostly been implemented. It's been one of the greatest successes of our time.
Generally speaking, I want to bring chip manufacturing here, but if he's got a different way to do it, I'm open-minded.
Do you support a repeal?
Thank you, Senator.
I don't think that's likely to happen.
And so you heard John Cornyn there at the end say, I don't think that's likely to happen. It is very unlikely that they're going to repeal the CHIPS Act, given so much of this investment is already being delivered to many of these companies and states around the country. Yes. It came out of left field more than anything, Hallie. A lot of people surprised that's where the president went.
Came out of left field, kind of like my poorly received joke about an age gap. I'm sorry about that. I was just riffing a little bit. You glossed right over it. We're literally like basically the same age, and so it was just it was like a segue.
We're in the same ballpark.
It was like a poorly managed segue. So I take that. I appreciate you. Thank you, Ryan Nobles.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Also tonight, we are seeing one of the biggest jumps in people looking for mortgages in years. This is after mortgage rates dropped to their lowest point in months. The number of people applying for new mortgages or refinancing their existing one jumped like 20% last week. That's a big number, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association. I want to bring in our CNBC real estate correspondent, Diana Olick, for more on this. It's so good to see you.
You too.
Okay, why?
Okay, well, it is a big number. In fact, it is one of the biggest numbers we've seen in the last 5 years, top three, I'll tell you that. So why are mortgage rates coming down? I won't get into the technicals of the bond markets. I will not, I swear, I promise. But what it is about is what you're talking about. It's concern over tariffs. It's that, barreling toward a shutdown. All that stuff you're talking about, the consumer feeling concerned and consumer weakness, that's pulling interest rates down, and that's offering an opportunity for people to refinance because a couple of people, not a lot of people bought in the last 2 years, but they're the ones at the higher interest rates. Most of us have rates well below what's being offered today, but those who may have bought in the last 2 years, they could see some savings.
If you're sitting pretty at 3.5%, you're probably not.
No, we're up over 6.
But let's say you don't have a house. Let's say you're one of the many people, and as a millennial, I think there's a lot in that generation who are like, man, I wish I could afford a house, but there's just been a series of things sort of economically that have stopped that or made it harder to do. Is this maybe a time to start thinking about speeding up that search? What would experts say?
Well, mortgage rates being lower is great. We saw a 9% jump in the purchase applications. Now, 9% might seem like a lot, but you're coming off the lowest volumes since 1995, literally. So I don't want to get mathy, but when you come off a low volume and you see any kind of move higher, it's going to be a big percentage jump, right? So they're also up against really high prices. Again, that consumer confidence is not there. This is the biggest investment you're ever going to make, buying a home. If you're not confident about the economy, you're not going to jump in. Rates are a little better than they were. We're seeing them the lowest in several months. And so that's helping some buyers get in there. There's a lot of demand. There's still not a lot of supply out there.
That's right.
That's the problem.
Okay.
Because if you have 3.5%, are you going to sell?
That's right.
No.
Diana Olick, there's always something to watch in your beat. There's always something going on. Thanks for coming down to the first floor with us. Good to see you. Coming up after the break, weight loss drugs can do a lot for some people, but they don't always come cheap. How the makers of Wegovy are giving some a discount. Plus, take a look at this dramatic video showing the rescue of a woman from flooding in the Canary Islands. Oof, we'll tell you how somebody nearby, a bystander, managed to get her to safety.
Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, 3 heli skiers are feared dead in Alaska after getting caught in an avalanche. Public safety officials say they think they're buried between 40 and 100 feet deep. They have not been found yet. Troopers have not been able to actually get to the site because of that avalanche risk. Number 2, in the Canary Islands, a sudden rainstorm and a dramatic rescue. Look at this, the floods sweeping that car downstream. And one woman trapped in another car getting saved by a man braving that crush of water. Incredibly, there they are. They are both okay. Number 3, a new study says vaping does not help smokers quit and could actually keep people addicted to nicotine. This study found smoking cessation, in other words, the process of quitting smoking, was about 4% lower among smokers who vaped daily. Number 4, chaotic scene on a boat off the coast of New Zealand after this, oh my God, 900-pound dolphin landed right on top. Dolphin's 11 feet long. The boat's only 16 feet long, so there was a lot to manage there. The boat's owner says none of the 3 people on board were seriously hurt. Conservation officials helped get the dolphin back into the water, but they had to use a crane to do it. Number 5, some news close to home tonight and an exciting move for a familiar face, as our own Tom Yamas is set to become the next anchor of Nightly News. That's after Lester shared last week he'd be leaving the show after a decade in the chair. A big congratulations to Tom. We are cheering him on as he takes over the broadcast. He'll also be sticking around right here on NBC News Now to keep anchoring Top Story. Also tonight, other news as well. Another move to make those popular weight loss drugs more accessible to more people, as Novo Nordisk, which, makes Wegovy, tells users it's going to offer it for half price through a new direct-to-consumer online pharmacy. There is a catch. You got to pay out of pocket. But it is an option now for people whose insurance won't cover the drug, $500 a month instead of its list price of around $1,300. The company says they're basically trying to make Wegovy more available and make sure patients use the branded medication instead of cheaper compounded copycats. Remember, those copycats became super popular during the semaglutide drug shortage in the U.S., but the FDA says that shortage is now over. Rahima Ellis is joining us now. Okay, so there's a couple of interesting threads for this year. If you are somebody who, during that semaglutide shortage, was like, I got to go to these compounded drugs, to some of these other places, because I cannot actually get my hands on the brand name. Now that you've got these brand names like Novo Nordisk offering this at a, I'm going to put it in quotes, discount. It is discounted from sort of the rack rate, if you will. How does that affect the industry? How does that affect the market?
Well, if the FDA had allowed these off-brand, cheaper pharmaceuticals to come onto the market because of the shortage of the name brand weight loss drugs. But now that shortage doesn't exist anymore, and so you've got those big name companies like Wegovy, which are able to produce. Now, the thing about it is these drugs are so popular, they've decided that they're going to reduce the cost of these drugs. Take a look. We've got a full screen. I want to show you about the cost of these things. It's a lot of money. We're talking about over $1,000 for some of these items. Look at Ozempic, about $1,000. Wegovy, it's over $1,000, and it goes on in that direction. But will you able to get these off-brand names? Maybe not, because it was the FDA that gave these companies permission to produce them. Now the FDA may be taking that permission away and telling those off-brand names are going to have to wind down. And there are these options the big name brand companies now offering so that people can get these pharmaceuticals at a lower price. Hallie?
So here's the question, though. We know all about supply and demand. If, in fact, there is a more affordable way, and again, affordable is all relative, but a more affordable way to get something like Wegovy, could that potentially lead to another shortage down the road?
Who knows?
Okay.
I don't have the crystal
totally
ball
fair
that says
answer. Yes.
that says that, but anything could be possible if the demand is there and the supply cannot meet that demand. The FDA may go and resort to what it did before, where we are right now, and allow that these off-brand names to come onto the market. But I don't know the answer to that specifically at this moment.
Rahima Ellis, we're so glad to have you with us. Thank you for breaking that down for us tonight. I appreciate it. Elon Musk is continuing his role as White House, ideas person in chief alongside President Trump as he's putting forward some
some new thoughts on what he'd like to see in the federal government. Not just those massive cuts to the federal workforce that his DOGE has been implementing, but he's also telling a tech conference today he thinks the country should privatize big parts of the federal government, including the Postal Service, including Amtrak. That's according to a source in the room with Musk. He's also opening the door to another potentially controversial move, pardoning the former police officer convicted of killing George Floyd. It's all in response to a petition from Ben Shapiro calling for President Trump to pardon Derek Chauvin. And here's where Musk comes in. Writing on X, the idea is, in his words, something to think about. Now remember, Chauvin's been convicted on both the federal and the state level. He's serving 2 20-plus year sentences simultaneously right now. NBC's Marquise Francis is following this for us. A presidential pardon, Marquise, is not going to get Chauvin out of prison sooner for the federal, for the state piece of it, of course. So talk through some of the dynamics at play, because it's a lot of it seems like this is potentially a political move if the president were to pursue this or consider it more seriously.
Yeah, for sure, Hallie. I mean, just to reiterate, if President Trump were to pardon Derek Chauvin, it would do nothing to actually reduce his sentence, because it would only throw out his federal conviction. That state conviction, he's serving 22 years for second-degree unintentional murder, would still stand. But the fact that this is out there in the ethos, Elon Musk and Ben Shapiro putting it out, it likely gives something for conservatives to get behind. If you think about it and think back in the summer of 2020, the summer of reckoning that a lot of people talked about, there was a lot of people that came out and protested after the murder of George Floyd, not only in Minneapolis, but around the country and around the world. And a lot of things came out from that, whether it was policing policies or things like diversity, equity, and inclusion in corporations and on college campuses. But already within less than 2 months in President Trump's time in office the second time around, a lot of these things have been done away with, right? And so we're seeing this post as possibly taking a look at the impact, maybe the outsized impact of conservative minds like an Elon Musk and a Ben Shapiro. And the fact that we're even talking about it is probably likely what they wanted. In addition to that post, Ben Shapiro put a link where people could actually sign up for that petition. And I want to read part of it where he wrote, quote, "Make no mistake, the Derek Chauvin conviction represents the defining achievement of the woke movement in American politics. The country cannot turn the page on that dark, divisive, and racist era without righting this terrible wrong." And so pretty much the fact that this is out there, even though Derek Chauvin's conviction won't be, or at least his prison time won't go down, the fact that we're talking about it is getting people riled up. Hallie?
Marquise Francis, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. NBC News covers hundreds of other stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Southern Bureau, one boy in Alabama being called a hero for saving his younger sister from a house fire. The family says the whole thing was so chaotic, they didn't realize 8-year-old Mia was still inside. But her 10-year-old brother ran back into the burning house to grab her. It gives you chills just thinking about it, just hearing about it. Everyone, fortunately, amazingly, is doing just fine. Also out of our Southern Bureau, police in Florida say somebody swallowed about $800,000 worth of stolen jewelry from Tiffany. You see him grabbing it here. Apparently, when he was stopped by police, he then swallowed it. It was a pair of earrings. The man is now facing several charges. Out of our Midwest Bureau, at a time when the cost of eggs has been spiking, one farm in Michigan says it'll give away 12,000 eggs in the next 3 months. Once a week, the farm says workers like delivery drivers or snowplowers can grab a carton of eggs, no charge. The owner says he's doing it as a thank you to people who work hard but who don't get a lot of recognition for it. Listen, you love to see a good person doing good deeds. Gotta love it. Also tonight, FIFA's making some new moves to try to drum up some excitement over the 2026 World Cup, which kicks off about a year from now, year and change, next June. They're announcing the first ever Super Bowl-style halftime show for FIFA. Who's the headliner? Coldplay. They're booked to put together a roster of artists to perform at a halftime show during the final match in New Jersey. I should say, we don't know if they're going to be the headliner. We can't say for sure if Chris Martin and Coldplay are actually going to hit the stage, but they are sort of organizing and assembling all this. Still months away from the first matches, but the halftime show announcement comes as some in the sports world are flagging some pretty lackluster interest around the whole World Cup thing. Listen.
The panic is very much there. The fact that there is just like no recognition. If this was Germany and the World Cup was coming, the country would already be dancing. It would already be celebrating. There would already be just a huge amount of noise. It would be all you're hearing about.
This is not the U.S.'s first rodeo. They hosted Solo back in '94, so that was quite a minute ago. But next year, it's a joint push, right? North America, U.S., Mexico, Canada. You can see where all the matches are going to be played. NBC's Priscilla Thompson is following this for us from Houston, where 7 World Cup matches are scheduled. And what's so interesting is if you look at some numbers from last year, less than a third of Americans are interested in the World Cup. So there is maybe some pressure on FIFA to try to get people pumped up. Although I will also say, Priscilla, as I put on my political journalist hat, if this were like an election, we would say there's still a long way to go. The people maybe don't start tuning in until much closer to the date that it actually happens. And I wonder if maybe some of that's at play now here.
Yeah, Hallie, I'm sure that there is a bit of that at play, but the World Cup organizers are wasting no time trying to get folks excited, even as we are quite a ways out with these announcements that we're hearing about this Super Bowl-style halftime performance. I mean, what is more American than a Super Bowl-style halftime performance? And we now know that Coldplay is going to be curating that list of performers. No word yet, as you mentioned, on whether or not they will be performing, but certainly a group that a lot of Americans and folks around the world are interested in. So we'll be watching for updates there. And the World Cup organizers have also said that they're going to be doing a Times Square takeover in New York City for the semifinals and the finals match. So another opportunity to kind of drum up support here in the U.S. And they're going to be doing these short films about the various cities and sites where these games are going to be held, including, of course, right here in Houston, but also in Dallas, where we heard officials there briefing earlier today saying that they are going to be the international broadcasting center for the entire tournament. And here's what the mayor had to say about that responsibility.
These folks are coming from around the world to do a very important job. They're going to be here for 7 months, and we have to provide them with all the things they need to be able to do their job and to live. And so we're honored, we're proud, and we are absolutely ready.
And another big question as it relates to this halftime performance is how long will it be? Halftime in the World Cup is about 15 minutes. As we know, for the Super Bowl, it's usually about 30 minutes to provide time to set up the stage and break down the stage. So we'll be watching carefully to see how long that performance is going to be. Hallie?
Our most recent sort of halftime show comparison, of course, is Kendrick Lamar at the Super Bowl not too long ago. And the NFL seemed to be making this bet that even people who weren't football fans may tune in to see Kendrick, to see everybody who's performing. Same deal here. I mean, do you think that's some of what is driving FIFA? Are they trying to tap into some of that?
Yeah, it might be. We know that every year there are tons of non-football fans who watch just for the halftime show. And this year in particular, you had Kendrick Lamar being the first solo rap artist performing. There was a lot of questions about would Taylor Swift perhaps join him on stage? Would he perform Not Like Us? And so that was driving a lot of the viewership there. I will say that in the grand scheme of things, the American audience for the Super Bowl usually pales in comparison to the global audience that the FIFA World Cup is able to get. But at the same time, U.S. viewership tends to lag when it comes to soccer. While it is a sport that is growing here in popularity, the viewership numbers do tend to lag. So it's very possible that FIFA is trying to drive some of that up this year as we are among the host countries. Hallie?
Priscilla Thompson, are you going to go next year? Like, was that going to be, even if you weren't on assignment, would you go?
I mean, I got to. It's going to be in Houston. How could I not?
That's right. Okay, that's what I like to hear. Priscilla Thompson, thank you very much. Our future World Cup correspondent joining us now, of course, from Texas. Thanks, Priscilla. Still to come here on the show, prosecutors breaking up a ticket theft ring that made hundreds of thousands of dollars off of Swifties, basically. Taylor Swift Eras Tour tickets. The message they're sending to other potential fraudsters. Next. StubHub now says it is stepping up security to prevent ticket resale schemes after New York prosecutors charged a cybercrime crew of potentially ripping off something like $600,000 from Swifties. We're talking stolen Taylor Swift Eras Tour tickets and other expensive events. Prosecutors say the two allegedly involved worked at a third-party contractor for StubHub. They supposedly used their access to StubHub's system to take tickets that had already been sold and had their co-conspirators download the tickets and then resell them on StubHub for a profit. Now, I say Swifties. It wasn't just Swifties. Apparently, they also tried to steal tickets for Adele and Ed Sheeran concerts, for NBA games and the U.S. Open. Danny Savalos is joining us now. This is a big plot, right? These people are accused of trying to steal nearly 1,000 tickets. How serious are these charges? And what is the message that is meant to send with this crackdown here?
Well, at least two of the charges have statutory maximums of 15 years. But this is a curious crime, one that I expect was discovered relatively quickly. Tickets to events are not fungible items. They're not like cash or laundry detergent that you can't track. They are finite, and each one is unique. And presumably there was somebody waiting who legitimately bought a ticket and never received it. So I have to imagine that this is a scheme that simply could not have gone on for very long unless StubHub maybe just missed it in its initial stages. But this is one that ultimately has quite an electronic trail, so no surprise here that prosecutors were able to track down the people allegedly responsible, both here in the States and elsewhere.
StubHub says the customers that were affected have since had those tickets replaced or they were given their money back. This does speak, I think, to a broader moment here. If you step back a little bit, something we've talked before about on the show, the pressure that a lot of these ticket companies are facing over prices. Again, separate from this scheme, kind of a piece here. Look at how much, nearly $26, the ticket average ticket price. Back in the mid-90s, when I know, were, 7 years old, the average ticket was like $25.81, so $52 adjusted for inflation. You can see what it is now, right? It is more than doubled, basically. But people are still buying. One survey found that especially Gen Z, they say they overspend on events. They want to go to live stuff. This is part of, the experience, especially if you're a youth, a young person who wants to go be a part of it.
Well, that's the dilemma. On the one hand, you're right. Ticket prices have gone up. But on the other hand, tickets to events are in that category of things for which demand is not only elastic, it's not only sometimes infinite, it's totally unpredictable. It's the same with markets like luxury watches. They have a market value. They have a resale value. It's not really tethered to reality. So these are all tickets that people are choosing to purchase at the prices that the market sustains. So certainly there is a complaint to be made that the prices have steadily risen so much since I was but a child in not the 90s, more like the 70s. But still, these ticket prices are something that people are willing to pay those dollar amounts. And therefore, as long as they're willing to do so, the market prices will stay essentially where they are.
It's so interesting. Wait, I have to know, though, what was your first live show?
Oh, Michael Jackson, 1980, I think it was 2.
Danny Savalos, we learn something new every day. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We've got more coverage picking up right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.